They left me at the airport like forgotten luggage. My ex-wife, my own son, drove away without looking back, laughing about how I'd never make it home. What they didn't know, what they couldn't have known, was that 72 hours earlier, I'd received a letter that would change everything. A test, a fortune, and a choice that would expose exactly who they'd always been. Some mistakes you can't take back. Theirs started the moment those taillights disappeared into the rain. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and write in the comments section where you're watching from, so I'll know how far my story has gone.
The rain hit the pavement outside SeaTac like 1,000 tiny betrayals. I stood under the white glare of Terminal C, watching Vanessa's rental car pull away. Red taillights. 2 blinks. Gone. She didn't look back. Caleb didn't either. My son, 23 years old, 6'2", and he couldn't even meet my eyes through the rear window. The automatic doors hissed shut behind them. The sound felt final. Around me, the airport breathed. Rolling suitcases clattered over tile. A gate agent called for boarding. Someone's kid screamed about a lost tablet. But all I could hear was Vanessa's voice, still sharp in my ears from 10 minutes ago. "Find your own way home, Stephen. We're done babysitting you." She'd said it like I was a burden she'd been carrying for years. Maybe I was. Maybe that's how she'd rewritten our story. Me as dead weight, her as the long-suffering martyr. Caleb just stood there, hands in his pockets, staring at his shoes like they held all the answers. I didn't argue, didn't beg, didn't even raise my voice. I just adjusted the strap on my duffel bag and said, "Drive safe." That seemed to throw her. She blinked, hesitated. For half a second, I thought she might actually feel something. But then her jaw tightened and she turned away. Caleb followed. He always did. Now, I was alone. I walked toward the departure board, my boots squeaking against the polished floor. The weight of the duffel pulled at my shoulder, but I didn't mind. Pain has a way of keeping you present, of reminding you that you're still here, still breathing. A woman with a yoga mat strapped to her backpack brushed past me, apologizing into her phone. A pilot in uniform checked his watch. Life moved around me like I wasn't even there. Maybe I wasn't. Maybe I'd been invisible for years and just didn't notice. But here's the thing Vanessa didn't know. 3 days ago, I received a letter, certified, thick envelope, Boston postmark. Inside was a single sheet of paper from a law firm I'd never heard of, representing an uncle I barely remembered. Uncle Raymond, the family ghost, the man who vanished into money and reappeared only in whispered conversations at Thanksgiving. He died 6 months ago in a lighthouse he'd bought on Cape Cod, alone, eccentric, forgotten by everyone except his attorney. He left me everything, $340 million. But there was a condition. A test, really. Raymond wanted to see if I could remain decent when the world showed me its cruelty. He'd been watching from a distance, waiting, measuring. Vanessa's cruelty was the final question. I stood there in the terminal, staring at the departure board, Portland to Seattle, Seattle to nowhere. My phone buzzed in my pocket, probably the attorney again, waiting for my answer, waiting to see what kind of man I'd become. I didn't pull it out, not yet, because I wanted Vanessa to live in this moment a little longer. The rain, the silence, the man she thought she could discard like an expired credit card. She thought she'd left me stranded. She didn't know she'd just freed me.
3 days before the airport, I was sitting in a Motel 6 outside Portland when the letter arrived. The envelope was thick, cream-colored, expensive paper, the kind that whispers money before you even open it. Boston postmark, return address, Harrington and Cole, attorneys at law. I had never heard of them, never been to Boston either. I almost threw it away, but something about the weight of it stopped me, like it carried more than just words. So I sat on the edge of the sagging motel bed, springs creaking beneath me, and tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, typed, formal, cold. Dear Mr. Stephen Brennan, we regret to inform you of the passing of Raymond Brennan on March 14th. As the sole named beneficiary of his estate, you are hereby entitled to all assets, properties, and holdings valued at approximately $340 million. I read that number 3 times. Then I laughed, out loud, alone in a motel room that smelled like burnt coffee and regret. It had to be a scam. Some elaborate phishing scheme. People like me don't inherit fortunes. We inherit diabetes and back pain and the quiet understanding that life doesn't owe us anything. But then I kept reading. However, per Mr. Brennan's explicit instructions, the inheritance is contingent upon your completion of a character assessment as outlined in his personal letter enclosed herewith. There was a second sheet, handwritten. The ink was faded, the script shaky but deliberate. Uncle Raymond's voice reaching out from the grave. Stephen, if you're reading this, I'm gone. Good. I was tired. I watched you from a distance for years. Watched you marry that woman. Watched her drain the light out of you piece by piece. Watched your boy grow up soft, entitled, gutless. I never interfered. That wasn't my place. But I need to know something before I hand you everything I built. I need to know if you're still decent. The world will test you, Stephen. It always does. People will show their teeth, not because they're hungry, but because they think you're weak. Let them. Let them show you exactly who they are. Don't react. Don't flinch. Don't lower yourself to their level. Then decide who deserves to eat. You have 60 days from the date of this letter. If you pass, the money is yours. If you fail, if you take revenge, if you lash out, if you become the cruelty they showed you, it all goes to charity. Every cent. Choose wisely. Raymond. I sat there for a long time after that. The motel air conditioner rattled. A truck rumbled past on the highway. My hands were shaking. 60 days. I looked at the date on the letter. It had been sent 4 weeks ago. That meant I had 1 month left. 1 month to prove I wasn't the bitter, broken man Vanessa thought I was. And then, 2 days later, she orchestrated the family trip to Portland, the sudden boyfriend appearance, the public humiliation at his sister's barbecue, the argument at the hotel, the airport abandonment. It all made sense now. Not because Vanessa knew about the money, she didn't. She couldn't. But because the universe has a way of arranging tests exactly when you need them most. Uncle Raymond had been right. Let them show their teeth. So I did.
I didn't leave the airport that night. There was no point. The last flight to anywhere I could afford had already left. So I walked until I found a 24-hour cafe wedged between gates D7 and D9. Chrome tables, plastic chairs, the kind of place where hope goes to die under fluorescent lights. I ordered black coffee, $3 for something that tasted like burnt rubber. But it was warm, and warmth was all I had. The duffel bag sat at my feet. Heavy. Everything I'd brought for the family reunion. 2 shirts, a pair of jeans, toiletries I'd bought at a Walgreens in Portland. The strap had dug into my shoulder so long there was a red line across my collarbone. I didn't mind. Pain reminded me I was still here. Outside the window, planes taxied through the rain, red lights blinking, wings slicing through fog, going somewhere, always somewhere. I wondered if Vanessa was home yet. Probably. Probably laughing with her boyfriend, Greg, or was it Grant? I couldn't remember. Didn't matter. He was just the latest model. Shinier, louder, everything I wasn't. She'd been perfecting this for years. The public humiliations, the small cuts disguised as concern. At Greg's sister's barbecue 2 days ago, she'd introduced me as Caleb's father, not her ex-husband, just a biological footnote. Then she'd laughed when Greg made a joke about me still wearing Costco jeans. Everyone laughed, even Caleb. That was the part that hurt most. Not Vanessa's cruelty. I'd grown used to that. But watching my son become her echo, watching him learn that love meant choosing sides, and I was always the wrong one. I took another sip of coffee. Cold now. Bitter. He used to be different, Caleb. When he was 7, he'd wake me up at dawn to watch cartoons. When he was 12, he cried in my arms after his first breakup. When he was 16, he told me I was the only person who really listened. But Vanessa had been whispering in his ear for years, rewriting history, turning me into the villain of a story I didn't recognize. And slowly, Caleb stopped calling, stopped visiting, stopped seeing me as anything more than an obligation. By the time we got to that airport curb, he'd already left me. The car just made it official. A janitor pushed a mop past my table. The overhead lights flickered. A gate agent announced a delay to San Francisco. The airport hummed with movement, but I sat perfectly still. Maybe they thought I'd beg. Maybe they thought I'd break down, call them, plead for forgiveness for crimes I didn't commit. But they forgot something, though. I was the one who taught Vanessa how to budget when we were young and broke. I was the one who taught Caleb how to tie his shoes, ride a bike, stand up after falling. I taught them how to survive. They forgot who the teacher was.
She appeared sometime after midnight, carrying a purple umbrella and a kindness I didn't deserve. "Mind if I sit?" she asked, already pulling out the chair across from me. I shrugged. The cafe was mostly empty. She could have sat anywhere, but she chose my table. And something about the way she moved, steady, unhurried, like she'd seen every version of tired the world had to offer, made me not mind. Her name was Miriam, late 70s, maybe older, silver hair pulled back in a bun, bright green scarf wrapped around her neck, despite the airport heat. She ordered tea, Earl Grey. Then she smiled at me like we were old friends reuniting after years apart. "Rough night?" she asked. "Something like that." She nodded, didn't push, just sipped her tea and stared out at the rain-slicked runway. A plane lifted off into the fog, lights disappearing into black. "I was a stewardess for 41 years, she said eventually. "Back when we still called it that. Pan Am, mostly. Saw the world. Rome, Tokyo, Sydney. Got proposed to twice at 30,000 feet. She laughed softly. Turned them both down. I didn't know what to say, so I said nothing. People think flying is about destinations. It's not. It's about the in-between. That moment when you're suspended above everything. No ground beneath you, no ceiling above. Just trust." She looked at me then. Really looked. like she could see the airport curb, the red taillights, the sun who wouldn't meet my eyes. "Someone left you here, didn't they?" I nodded. My throat felt tight. "Family?" "Ex-wife. Son." Miriam set down her tea. Her fingers were thin, veined, steady. "I raised 2 boys alone after my husband passed. Worked doubles, missed birthdays, sacrificed everything." She paused. "One of them hasn't spoken to me in 11 years. The other calls twice a year, Christmas and my birthday." "I'm sorry," I said. "Don't be." Her voice was firm, but not unkind. "Some lessons cost pride. Others cost everything. But you learn who you are when people stop pretending to care." We sat in silence after that. The airport hummed around us. A boarding call echoed through empty corridors. The janitor made another pass with his mop. Finally, Miriam stood. She folded her scarf carefully, picked up her umbrella, and placed a hand on my shoulder. "Whatever you're going through," she said quietly, "remember this. The best revenge isn't loud. It's lasting." Then she walked away, purple umbrella swinging at her side, disappearing into the maze of gates and strangers. I never saw her again, but I thought about her words for a long time after. Lasting.
I waited until dawn to read the rest of it. The cafe had emptied by then. Just me, the janitor, and the hum of vending machines keeping vigil through the night. Outside, the sky shifted from black to bruised purple, first light bleeding through the rain. I pulled the letter from my duffel bag, second page, the one I'd folded and shoved away after reading Uncle Raymond's opening lines. I'd been too angry then, too raw. But Miriam's words had done something to me. The best revenge isn't loud, it's lasting. So I unfolded the paper and read, "Stephen, by now you know the number, $340 million. I won't apologize for it. I earned every dollar, and I'm choosing what happens to it. That choice is you, if you prove worthy. Here's what you need to understand. Money doesn't change people. It reveals them. I've seen fortunes destroy families, turn children into vultures, make good men cruel and cruel men monstrous. I don't want that for you. So I'm giving you a test. Simple, painful, necessary. You will be betrayed. Maybe you already have been. Someone close to you, someone who should love you, will show you exactly how little you mean to them. They'll humiliate you, abandon you, treat you like you're disposable. And you'll have a choice. You can retaliate, shame them, expose them, use your pain as a weapon. That's what most people do. That's what makes them small. Or you can do something harder. You can act with grace. Grace doesn't mean weakness. It doesn't mean rolling over. It means refusing to let their cruelty turn you into them. It means walking away with your dignity intact, even when every cell in your body screams for justice. If you pass this test, if you remain decent when the world gives you every reason not to be, the money is yours. All of it. No strings. Build whatever life you want. But if you fail, if you lash out, if you seek revenge, if you let bitterness make you cruel, every cent goes to charity. You'll get nothing. I'll be watching, Stephen, even from wherever I am now. Choose carefully. Raymond. I read it twice, then a third time. The words settled over me like snow, cold,
quiet, undeniable. Uncle Raymond had orchestrated this. Not the airport abandonment. He couldn't have known about that. But he'd seen it coming. Vanessa's patterns. Seen Caleb chipping away at me year after year. Seen Caleb drifting into her orbit like a moon with no choice but to follow gravity. He'd known I'd be tested. And he'd known I'd have to choose. The attorney's number was at the bottom of the page. A Boston area code. Probably sitting in some leather chair right now waiting for my call. Waiting to see if I'd earned the inheritance or blown it in a fit of rage. I stared at my phone. One call. That's all it would take. One angry voicemail to Vanessa. One public post about what she'd done. One moment of weakness and I'd lose everything Raymond had built. But here's the thing. I didn't want to call her. Didn't want to text Caleb. Didn't even want them to know I was hurting. Because Miriam was right. Loud revenge fades. Lasting revenge echoes. So all I had to do was stay silent.
There was a time when Vanessa looked at me like I mattered. I thought about that as the sun rose over SeaTac. Thought about the apartment we shared in Tacoma when we were 24. One bedroom, cracked linoleum, a couch we'd found on the curb and reupholstered ourselves with fabric from Joann's. She used to laugh back then. Real laughter, not the sharp kind she perfected later. We'd eat ramen at 2 a.m. and talk about the future like it was something we were building together, brick by brick. "I'm going to open my own salon someday," she'd say, eyes bright. "Something classy, downtown Seattle, you'll see." And I believed her, believed in her. Worked double shifts at the warehouse so she could take cosmetology classes. Came home smelling like sweat and cardboard, and she'd massage my shoulders and call me her hero. That version of Vanessa feels like a ghost now. I don't know when she stopped seeing me as a partner and started seeing me as an anchor. Maybe it was after Caleb was born and my back injury meant I couldn't lift boxes anymore. Maybe it was when her salon dream stayed a dream because life got expensive and dreams don't pay for diapers. Or maybe it was slower than that. 1,000 small disappointments that added up to resentment she never named out loud. Caleb was 5 when I first noticed the shift. We were at a park in Olympia. He'd fallen off the monkey bars and scraped his knee, came running to me, crying. I scooped him up, kissed his forehead, told him he was brave. Vanessa stood 10 feet away, arms crossed, watching. When I looked up, she turned away. Like she resented even that, the fact that our son still ran to me first. By the time he was 10, she'd started rewriting history in his head. Little comments like, "Your dad's too tired to play, honey. He's always too tired." Or, "We'd have a bigger house if some people tried harder." Caleb would look at me differently after those moments, confused. Like he was trying to reconcile the dad he knew with the dad she was describing. I should have fought back, should have defended myself, but I kept hoping she'd stop, kept hoping love would win. It didn't. By the time Caleb turned 16, he barely spoke to me. By 20, he'd moved in with Vanessa full time. By 23, he couldn't even look me in the eye at an airport curb. And the worst part? I understood. Vanessa had spent years building a narrative, years turning her disappointment into my failure. And Caleb, caught in the middle, had simply chosen the parent who made him feel less guilty for existing. I didn't blame him, not really. I blamed myself for staying silent, for thinking love meant enduring, for believing that if I just kept showing up, eventually they'd see me again. The airport lights flickered overhead. The coffee had gone cold hours ago. I whispered it to no one, to the empty cafe,
to the ghosts of who we used to be. I still would have forgiven her if she'd only asked. I didn't buy a plane ticket. By 8 a.m., the Greyhound counter had opened near the baggage claim. A tired woman with reading glasses perched on her nose asked where I was headed. Tacoma, I said. She clicked through her computer. Next bus leaves in 40 minutes, $38. I handed her two 20s. She gave me change and a printed ticket. Gate 7, lower level. I could have flown, could have used the emergency credit card I kept hidden in my wallet for moments exactly like this, but something about the bus felt right. Honest, like I was choosing the long road on purpose. The Greyhound station smelled like diesel and burnt coffee. Plastic seats bolted to the floor. A TV mounted in the corner playing morning news no one watched. I sat near the window and waited. A woman with two kids sat across from me. The younger one, maybe 4, clutched a stuffed dinosaur. The older one stared at a phone with a cracked screen. The mother looked exhausted in a way I recognized, the kind that doesn't come from one bad night, but from years of holding everything together alone. She caught me looking and smiled, apologetic, like she thought her kids might be bothering me. I smiled back. They weren't. The bus arrived 10 minutes late. We filed on. I took a seat in the back. The engine rumbled to life, and we pulled out of SeaTac, heading north on I-5. Rain streaked the windows. The highway stretched gray and endless. We passed strip malls and car dealerships and billboards advertising injury lawyers. America in motion. Beautiful in its ugliness. I thought about Uncle Raymond as the miles rolled by. Thought about his lighthouse in Cape Cod, the fortune he'd built alone, the test he'd left behind. What did it mean to be worthy? For years I'd measured my worth through other people, through Vanessa's approval, through Caleb's affection, through whether I could provide, protect, prove I mattered. But none of that had been enough. I'd worked myself raw, and still they'd left me at a curb like forgotten luggage. Maybe that was the point. Maybe Raymond wasn't testing whether I could endure cruelty. Maybe he was testing whether I could stop measuring my worth by people who refused to see it. The bus stopped in Olympia. A few passengers got off. New ones climbed on. The mother with the two kids stayed. The younger one had fallen asleep against her shoulder. Dinosaur still clutched tight. I stared out the window as we pulled back onto the highway. I didn't need Vanessa to understand what she'd done. Didn't need Caleb to apologize. Didn't need anyone's validation to know I'd survived something that should have broken me. The inheritance wasn't about the money. It never was. It was about proving I could walk away with my dignity intact. And I would. But first, I had to rebuild it.
The bus dropped me in Tacoma at 3 p.m. I stood on Pacific Avenue with my duffel bag and 37 cents in my pocket. The rain had followed me from Seattle. Everything was gray, wet, cold. I took another bus, local this time, to the house, our house, the one Vanessa and I had bought 15 years ago when we still believed in us. Small, 2 bedrooms, peeling paint, but it had been ours. I got off 2 blocks away and walked. The for sale sign was gone. In its place, a cheerful sold sticker, red and white, final. I stood on the sidewalk, staring. A new mailbox, fresh mulch in the flower beds, curtains I didn't recognize hanging in the living room window. She'd sold it. Sold our house, and she'd never said a word.
I pulled out my phone, checked the joint account we'd kept for emergencies, the one with my name still on it, the one that had $4,200 in it last time I looked. Balance? $0.00. Transaction history? One withdrawal. 2 weeks ago. Full amount. Vanessa's name. I called Caleb. Straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message. I called again an hour later. Voicemail. Again that night. Voicemail. He'd blocked me. Or he was ignoring me. Either way, the message was clear. They erased me. For 3 days, I stayed at a motel off Highway 16, $49 a night. Thin walls, a bed that sagged in the middle. I ate from vending machines and walked the streets during the day, trying to figure out what came next. On the 4th day, I found a studio apartment in a building near Wright Park. $650 a month. No lease required if I paid 2 months up front. The landlord, an older man named Hank with paint-stained hands, didn't ask questions, just handed me the keys. It was small. 1 room, kitchenette in the corner, bathroom with a shower that dripped, but it was mine. I bought a sleeping bag from Goodwill, a folding chair, a lamp. That was all I needed. The rest of the money, what little Raymond's attorney had wired me as a living allowance while the estate processed, I kept untouched. I wasn't ready to use it yet, wasn't ready to become the man who had everything while still feeling like nothing. So, I started over, quietly. I got a part-time job washing dishes at a diner on 6th Avenue. Minimum wage, hands raw from bleach water, but the work was honest. And the owner, a woman named Lucia, didn't care about my story, just whether I showed up on time. I did. On weekends, I volunteered at the Tacoma Rescue Mission, served meals, swept floors, listened to men who'd lost more than I had and still found reasons to smile. I lived small, invisible, erased. Vanessa probably thought I was broken somewhere. Caleb probably didn't think of me at all. And maybe that was fine. Because while they were moving on, forgetting, rewriting history without me in it, I was remembering who I was before them. They erased me. Or so they thought.
I waited 37 days before making the call. Not because I was afraid, not because I doubted, but because I needed to prove something to myself first. That I could survive without the money, that I could rebuild from nothing and still stand upright. By day 37, I had. I was sitting in my studio apartment on a Tuesday morning. The rain tapped against the window. My shift at the diner didn't start until noon. I had time. I pulled out the letter, the attorney's number at the bottom. Boston area code. I'd stared at it so many times the ink had started to fade from my fingerprints. I dialed. 2 rings. Then a voice. Professional. Crisp. Harrington and Cole, how may I direct your call? I need to speak with someone about the Raymond Brennan estate. A pause. Keys clicking. 1 moment, please. Classical music filled the line. Mozart, maybe. Something elegant and old. Then a new voice. Older. Male. Confident. Mr. Brennan, I was beginning to wonder if you'd call. You're the attorney? Thomas Harrington. I've been managing your uncle's affairs for 22 years, and yours for the last 60 days. So you know about the test. I wrote the conditions myself. His tone softened slightly. Your uncle was very specific, very deliberate. He wanted to ensure the money went to someone who wouldn't be corrupted by it. I leaned back in the folding chair. It creaked. And did I pass? You tell me, Mr. Brennan.
Have you acted with grace when faced with betrayal? I thought about the airport, the letter, the house that wasn't mine anymore, Caleb's silence, Vanessa's cruelty. I thought about the nights I wanted to call her, to scream, to tell her exactly what I had inherited and watch her face crumble. But I hadn't. Yes, I said quietly, I have. Then congratulations. The estate is yours. All assets, all accounts. We'll begin the transfer process. My chest tightened. It was real. After everything, it was real. There's one thing you should know, Harrington continued. Once the transfer becomes public, and it will, estate filings are public record, people will ask questions. Journalists, family members, anyone who feels entitled to an explanation. Let them ask. Your ex-wife will likely find out. Good. Harrington chuckled, low, approving. Your uncle would have liked that answer. When does it become official? 72 hours. I'll send over the paperwork via courier, sign, return, and then, Mr. Brennan, your life changes. I stared out the window. A woman walked by it with an umbrella. A bus splashed through a puddle. Life continued, indifferent and steady. Mr. Harrington? Yes? Thank you for managing this, for believing I could. Don't thank me, thank Raymond. He saw something in you no one else did. A pause. He saw a man who could lose everything and not lose himself. We hung up. I sat there for a long time after that. The rain kept falling. The apartment stayed quiet. Nothing had changed yet. But everything had. Somewhere in Tacoma, Vanessa was living her life. Caleb was ignoring my existence. They'd moved on, comfortable in the narrative they'd written. They had no idea what was coming. Sometimes justice doesn't knock. It signs a check.
It hit the news on a Friday morning. I was at the diner, elbow deep in dishwater, when Lucia burst through the kitchen door, holding her phone. Stephen, is this you? She turned the screen toward me. The Seattle Times, front page of the local section. Tacoma man inherits $340 million from reclusive tech mogul uncle. There was a photo, an old one, me at 40, smiling at some family barbecue I barely remembered. They must have pulled it from social media. Below it, the story unfolded in clean, merciless paragraphs. Stephen Brennan, 52, a dishwasher at a local Tacoma diner, has inherited the entire estate of his late uncle, Raymond Brennan, founder of Apex Telecommunications. The inheritance, valued at approximately $340 million, includes properties in Cape Cod, Boston, and Seattle, as well as stock portfolios and business holdings. According to estate attorney Thomas Harrington, the inheritance was contingent on a unique character assessment designed by Raymond Brennan before his death. Mr. Brennan passed every condition with extraordinary grace, Harrington stated. Lucia stared at me. Stephen, is this real? I dried my hands on the towel, nodded. Holy! She covered her mouth, then laughed, then hugged me so hard I almost lost my balance. Why didn't you say anything? Didn't seem important. Didn't seem... She shook her head, eyes shining. You're still washing dishes? For now. By noon, it had spread everywhere. The News Tribune, King 5, even a mention on CNN's Crawl. Local outlets called the diner. Reporters showed up asking for interviews. Lucia shooed them away, protective like a mother bear. My phone started buzzing around 1 p.m. First, a voicemail. Vanessa's voice.
high-pitched, shaky. "Stephen, it's me. I saw the news. I don't even know what to say. Call me back, please. We need to talk." Delete. Another voicemail, 10 minutes later. "Stephen, come on. Don't do this. I know things ended badly, but look, maybe we were hasty. Maybe we can figure this out. For Caleb's sake. Just call me back." Delete. A text from a number I hadn't heard from in months. Caleb. "Dad, can we talk?" I stared at it for a long time. 3 words. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just a request, like he was asking to borrow the car. I didn't reply. Another voicemail. Vanessa again. This time crying. "Stephen, please. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was angry. I was stupid. I didn't mean it all. You know I didn't. We can fix this. We can start over. Just call me back." Delete. By evening, there were 12 voicemails, 16 texts, 3 from Caleb, 9 from Vanessa, even one from Greg or Grant, whoever he was, asking if we could discuss things like adults. I turned off my phone, sat in my studio apartment. The rain had stopped. The city glowed orange through the window. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was panicking. Caleb was scrambling. They were rewriting history in real time, trying to figure out how to undo what they'd done. But some things can't be undone. I thought about Uncle Raymond, about his letter, about grace. Grace didn't mean forgiveness. It meant I didn't owe them anything. Not my anger, not my pain, and certainly not my reply.
They showed up on Sunday evening. I was reading when the knock came. 3 sharp raps, polite, hesitant. I knew before I opened the door. Vanessa stood in the hallway wearing a navy dress I'd never seen before. Hair done, makeup careful. Caleb stood beside her in a button-down shirt, hands shoved in his pockets, eyes on the floor. "Stephen," Vanessa said. Her voice cracked on my name. "Can we come in?" I stepped aside. They entered slowly, like they were walking into a museum, taking in the sparse room, the folding chair, the sleeping bag, the single lamp casting long shadows. "You've been living here?" Vanessa asked. "For a while now." She looked like she might cry. Caleb still hadn't met my eyes. "Can we sit?" "There's only one chair." She glanced at the sleeping bag. I didn't offer it, so they stood. Vanessa took a breath. Rehearsed, I could tell. "Stephen, I owe you an apology. A real one. What we did at the airport, what I did, it was unforgivable. I was angry, confused. I let my frustration with our past cloud my judgment, and I took it out on you in the worst possible way." She paused, waiting for a response. I gave her none. "I've spent the last few days thinking about everything, about us, about the sacrifices you made, and I realize now that I didn't see them, didn't appreciate them." Her voice softened. "I'm sorry, Stephen. Truly." Caleb finally looked up. "Dad, I messed up too. I should have stood up for you, should have said something. I didn't know how." Silence filled the room, the kind that presses against your chest. "Why are you here?" I asked quietly. Vanessa blinked. "Because we care about you. Because we want to make things right." "Make things right." "Yes." I walked to the window, looked out at the street below. A couple walked by, holding hands. A dog barked somewhere distant.
Do you remember that night at SeaTac? You left me there, drove away, said I was a burden, you were done babysitting. Stephen, I stood in that terminal for hours, watched planes take off, drank cold coffee, and you know what I kept thinking? Neither of them answered. I kept thinking that somewhere along the way, you stopped seeing me as a person. I became a problem, a disappointment, something to manage or discard. I turned to face them. Vanessa's eyes were wet. Caleb looked like he wanted to disappear. My uncle left me a test. He wanted to know if I could remain decent when people showed me cruelty, if I could act with grace when grace wasn't deserved. Vanessa's breath hitched. You passed. I did. But here's the thing you don't understand. I stepped closer. You failed the test the moment you stopped seeing me as human. The words landed like stones. Dad? Caleb's voice broke. I looked at my son, really looked at him. Saw the boy who used to wake me up for cartoons, the teenager who cried in my arms, the man who couldn't meet my eyes at an airport curb. I forgive you, Caleb. I do. But forgiveness doesn't mean we go back to what we were. It means I'm letting go of what you did to me. That's for me, not you. His face crumpled. Can we start over? Maybe. Someday, if you earn it. I turned to Vanessa. Her hands were shaking. And you? She whispered. You get neither. She stared at me, understanding dawning. I think you should leave now, I said. They did, quietly. No arguments, no pleas. The door closed behind them, and I finally exhaled.
Thomas Harrington flew in from Boston 3 weeks later. We met at a cafe in downtown Tacoma. Not the airport one, somewhere quieter. He wore a gray suit and carried a leather briefcase that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Mr. Brennan. He shook my hand. Firm grip, respectful. It's good to finally meet you in person. Likewise. We sat. He ordered tea. I ordered coffee. Black. I've brought the final documents, he said, opening the briefcase. Once you sign, the full transfer is complete. Everything becomes yours. Bank accounts, properties, investment portfolios, all of it. He slid a folder across the table. Thick. Official. I stared at it, but didn't reach for it yet. Can I ask you something first? Of course. Why did Raymond choose me? We barely knew each other. I saw him maybe 5 times in my entire life. Harrington smiled, sad, knowing. He watched you from a distance, read about you in Christmas cards your mother sent, heard stories, and he saw something rare. He paused. He saw a man who endured cruelty without becoming cruel. That's rarer than you think. I nodded slowly. I want to change the trust. Harrington raised an eyebrow. Change it how? I want to donate half of it, maybe more, to programs that help families dealing with estrangement, support groups, counseling services, shelters for people abandoned by the ones who were supposed to love them. I met his eyes. For the ones left at airports. Harrington didn't look surprised. He pulled out a pen. How much do you want to keep for yourself? I thought about it. The studio apartment, the diner job, the folding chair and sleeping bag. Enough to live simply, enough to help a few people quietly, but nothing extravagant. I don't need extravagant. He wrote something down, nodded. Your uncle would have loved this. Would he? He lived in a lighthouse, Mr. Brennan, alone, with more money than he could ever spend, but he never trusted people who chased wealth. Harrington smiled.
He trusted people who didn't need it to know who they were. We spent the next hour drafting the new trust structure. 50% to estrangement support programs, 20% to homelessness initiatives, 20% to educational scholarships for kids from broken families, 10% for me. Still more money than I'd ever imagined, but manageable, human. I signed the papers. Harrington witnessed. It was done. As he packed up his briefcase, he looked at me one last time. You passed the test, Stephen. Not because you stayed silent, but because you stayed yourself. He left. I sat there for a while longer, watching people pass by the window, living their lives, carrying their own burdens, fighting their own battles. I'd been tested, betrayed, abandoned. And I'd survived, not by becoming rich, but by refusing to become bitter. That was the real inheritance. 6 months later, I found myself back at SeaTech. Same terminal, Terminal C. Same fluorescent lights, same automatic doors that hissed like secrets. But this time, I wasn't being left behind. I stood near gate C14, boarding pass in hand. One-way ticket to Boston, then onward to Cape Cod, to the lighthouse Uncle Raymond had left me, the one he died in, the one I'd decided to see for myself. The rain fell, just like it had that night, steady, relentless. Pacific Northwest rain that feels less like weather and more like memory. I walked to the window, pressed my palm against the cold glass, watched planes taxi through the fog, red lights blinking, wings cutting through gray. Somewhere out there, Vanessa was living her life, probably with Greg, or Grant, or someone new entirely. It didn't matter anymore. Caleb had texted me twice in the last 6 months. Short messages, tentative, thinking about you. Hope you're doing okay. I'd replied to the second one, just once. I'm good. Take care of yourself. That was enough. For now. Maybe someday we'd rebuild something. Maybe not. Either way, I'd forgiven him. Not for his sake, for mine. The gate agent called for boarding. Group 1. I was in Group 3. I looked around the terminal, at the travelers rushing past, the families saying goodbye, the businessmen hunched over laptops, the woman with the yoga mat and the apologetic smile. Everyone carrying something. Everyone heading somewhere. I thought about Miriam, the retired stewardess with the purple umbrella, wondered if she was still out there, sharing wisdom with strangers in empty cafes. I never saw her again after that night, but her words stayed with me. The best revenge isn't loud, it's lasting. She was right. I hadn't destroyed Vanessa, hadn't embarrassed Caleb, hadn't used my inheritance as a weapon or a shield. I'd simply let go. And in letting go, I'd found something I didn't know I'd lost. Myself. Now boarding Group 3. I picked up my bag, small, light. Everything I needed fit inside. As I walked toward the gate, I passed the cafe where I'd spent that long night. It looked different now. Brighter, maybe. Or maybe I was different. I handed my boarding pass to the agent. She scanned it, smiled. Enjoy your flight, Mr. Brennan. Thank you. I walked down the jet bridge. The hum of the plane grew louder. I found my seat, window 12A. Stowed my bag, buckled in. The plane filled around me. A couple with a baby, a businessman already asleep, a teenager with headphones drowning out the world. We pushed back from the gate. The engines roared to life. The plane turned, taxied, lined up on the runway. Rain streaked the window. And then, lift. The ground fell away. Seattle disappeared into clouds. We climbed higher, above the rain, above the fog, into open sky. I closed my eyes and exhaled. Some journeys don't begin until you're left behind. But when they do, when they finally do, you realized you were never lost, just waiting for permission to find yourself. The plane leveled off, and I flew towards something new.
So here's my question for you. Was I right to handle it this way? Tell me in the comments below, what would you have done in my position? If you enjoyed this story, please hit that like button, subscribe to the channel for more real-life tales, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next one. Because trust me, there's so much more on this channel. Thank you for watching, and see you in the next life story.